Good evening, I'm Savannah Kelly. Welcome to APTN National News. A First Nation in Northern Ontario continues to struggle without access to safe drinking water after its water treatment system stopped working this past weekend. The Kashechewan First Nation is a remote fly-in community located near James Bay. The community says the situation has created a public safety crisis with sewage backing up into homes and contaminating water. They have declared a local state of emergency and are making evacuation plans. In an emailed statement to APTN News, Indigenous Services says the government is assisting the community with repairs to the water treatment system, distribution of bottled water, and evacuation planning. Kashechewan First Nation Chief Osea Wesley told APTN the community is making plans to evacuate 2,200 residents after the nursing station was flooded.
I feel sorry for the children right now. They have to go through this time in 2026. It's really sad to see children, babies have to leave with this cold weather, going to hosting communities, try to get the basic need of water, to this what's going on in our community. At the same time, it's, education is really important for the students. Now they have to miss this these days because of infrastructure failure.
A first-of-its-kind report reveals that Indigenous people and newcomers in the Northwest Territories' North Slave region are experiencing discrimination at rates far above the national average. And the kicker, most are unaware of the NWT Human Rights Commission. The NWT Human Rights Commission's 2025 report shows 90% of Indigenous survey respondents say they've faced discrimination in the past 5 years. For newcomers, it's 78%. That's nearly double the national average for both groups. There's also widespread lack of awareness about the very agency meant to help. Of the 87 respondents, just 8 Indigenous people and 2 newcomers had ever contacted the NWT Human Rights Commission. Barriers to reporting include fear of retaliation, emotional exhaustion, and a belief the process is too long and complex. The report includes a dozen recommendations. Commission Chair Charles Dent says the report is a baseline for change to improve outreach and services, and an action plan developed this year.
We have, in fact, just in the last few years, changed our process to try and make it more accessible. And we've changed to a restorative process. So what we do is bring people together to try and resolve the differences before it goes to a court-like process, and try and make it a much more humane, much more relational type of process. So that's one of the things that we definitely agree with that's in the report, is their recommendation that we become more restorative.
The Manitoba government is hiring crew leaders ahead of the 2026 wildfire season after the most destructive season on record in 2025. At the time, the provincial government was criticized by several First Nation leaders and affected communities for allegedly being unprepared. This year, the Manitoba Wildfire Service has already begun hiring for the season that usually starts in May. They are currently accepting applications for 6 positions: initial attack crew members and leaders throughout Manitoba, managers for aviation services, operations and training and safety in Winnipeg, as well as a wildfire superintendent in the northern region near Thompson. Posting for some positions closed January 11th, so make sure to check out jobsearch.gov.mb.ca if you're interested. The Pimicikamak Cree Nation in northern Manitoba continues the cleanup this week after the community lost power on December 28th for up to 110 hours in -30 weather. More than 4,000 people had to be evacuated as water pipes in homes quickly froze and burst in a matter of hours. Since that outage, people have been working around the clock to assess and repair hundreds of homes. The Cree Nation's chief admits they are tired and is demanding that the Canadian military be sent in to help. Kashechewan reports.
I hope I get a new house. Because this house was built here first before the ONR got built.
Murphy Trout is waiting for life to go back to normal. However, he realized a water pipe in his crawl space was leaking on Tuesday.
I could probably shut it off, huh?
Water has since filled that crawl space, damaging the home and some of his belongings. Trout lives in one of the older houses in the community, and if it becomes unlivable, he says he has nowhere else to stay.
Been living here for about 3 years with my brother because he was sick. He had to move in with him.
So far, up to 800 homes have been assessed, with about 200 in need of major repairs. Pimicikamak, which is located about 530 kilometers north of Winnipeg, went without power and heat for almost 5 days after a Manitoba hydro power line went down on December 28th. Up to 4,000 residents have been evacuated to Winnipeg, Thompson, The Paw, and Flin Flon, and are still waiting to return home. Nearly 20 plumbers are currently restoring water to about 100 seniors' homes.
I just want to help them a bit, but it's impossible to do everything just like that, eh?
The Cree Nation's lead plumber says little could be done to prevent pipes from freezing, as it only took hours for lines to break, and many homes do not have a backup generator.
Could this have been prevented? Like, if you had some advanced knowledge of how long it was actually going to take that you guys would be without power?
I don't think so, because it was cold. It was cold, like
So even 24 hours, we
even like a few hours, pump would be cracked.
Heat trace lines all were not operational, causing the water to freeze. Plumbings were all splitting because of it. The pumps would be the main thing. Shut off there, crawl spaces getting flooded, lots of damage, of course. It's going to be a considerable amount of weeks, if not months, to repair everything, get it online. We are trying to go for essential first, being seniors and children, and then moving on.
Frozen water lines weren't the only issue. Up to 5 homes were lost to fire after portable space heaters shorted out or overheated. This is one of 3 water treatment plants for the community. The infrastructure here is outdated, and plant operators have had to make repairs using only duct tape. Water is being shipped to homes, but the water is straight from the Nelson River and needs to be boiled. In the neighboring Cross Lake, cleanup and repairs continues. This home's basement has to be completely gutted and replaced after water filled the entire basement. First Nation, provincial and federal leaders visited Pimicikamak on Wednesday to assess the damage and held a closed-door meeting with leadership.
They're here to validate our truth, because nobody seems to believe what we're saying here. And it's unfortunate that we have to do this.
On Tuesday, the federal government announced it will assist with $1.4 million for aid and repairs. However, Chief Monias says those much-needed resources have yet to be made available. Officials also say the repairs could be in the millions, with many more months of work needed.
We need our infrastructure replaced and repaired at the moment, immediately, and replaced. Our water and sewer infrastructure is basically gone.
Chief Monias also wants the Canadian military to be sent in to help get the infrastructure up and running more quickly and keep the community from getting fatigue. For now, Northern and Arctic Affairs Minister Rebecca Chartrand would not make that promise.
From my personal perspective, is a local approach, right? We need to access all of the plumbers and technicians that are local. This is an opportunity to tap into, local and Indigenous owned businesses. Chiefs
were quick to respond.
We need the Army. They can actually provide all the technicians and all the engineers and to mobilize in mass and get things done. And we exhausted our local resources. I'm tired. Everybody's tired here. And everybody's saying, well, let's use local resources. Well, people haven't slept maybe with 2 hours.
This is a catastrophe, and the response needed requires all resources available that the nation needs at their disposal. In order to address this crisis, there has to be external resources. This is a national emergency now.
We have made the commitment that after this visit to community today, that we would meet again and assess, what is the damage and what is the approach that's needed. So I'm not ruling out that I'm not ruling out that the Army won't be deployed, but that is not my decision.
Premier Wab Kinew said he would not get in the way of military support, but was short on announcing any provincial assistance. Kinew did, however, order Manitoba Hydro to provide an after-action review and requested a new power line to be built along the main highway.
Will that make a difference? How feasible is it? That's a clear ask that I heard today, and so we're asking Hydro to take a serious look at that, and as part of their review of the situation.
For 48 years, we've been asking for to reroute that distribution line. For 48 years, they've been seeing that thing deteriorate. They knew there was a problem there. There was a big problem, and they ignored it, and it's basically neglect.
Right now, it is unclear if the military will still be sent in to help. However, with each passing day, evacuated residents grow more tired and restless. Chief Monias is advising evacuees to stay put, as many homes are still unsafe to live in, and the repairs and cleanup continue. Cree Nation, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thanks for that report, Creason. We need to take a quick break. Our weekly Truth in Politics panel is up next, where we discuss the stories behind the headlines. Stick around for that and more. Welcome back to APTN National News. As we've been reporting all this week, the Pimicikimak Cree Nation in Manitoba declared a state of emergency after a recent 4-day power outage left water and plumbing systems with severe damage and thousands of residents evacuated. For more on this, our weekly Truth in Politics panel is back for a new year of critical analysis on the stories behind the headlines. Jennifer Leywitz is the CEO of Pusqua Strategies, and Niigaan Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Niigaan and Jennifer, thank you both for joining us. We'll start with you, Niigaan. Pimicikamak, Cree Nation, and 4 other Northern First Nations signed the Northern Flood Agreement with Manitoba Hydro in 1977. Fast forward 48 years, and here we are, a single power line leading into the community breaks, leaving the whole community and thousands of people freezing in the dark. Their water lines freezing, pipes are bursting. What do you make of the situation?
Not only is it indicative of the ongoing neglect and the ongoing use of First Nations for predominantly extraction purposes, taking things from them, and then leaving them in a mess, in a situation of great harm. And we saw in Manitoba, like we see in many First Nations, chronically over years, which is when emergencies happen, you get massive problems, not just for the people who are there, but then also for everyone else. And those huge problems are based in evacuations. They're now health crises, mental health crises. Many communities are in situations in which they experience these traumas every few months. And so that puts tremendous stresses on everybody. And this is the ongoing mistreatment that we often talk about in this panel about for First Nations, but it really is indicative of taking things from First Nations and then never giving anything back other than just the very minimal things.
And Jennifer, Pimicikamak was among several that had to be evacuated last summer due to the worst wildfire season on record here in Manitoba. Now here they are over Christmas being evacuated again. What does this say about living conditions up north?
Well, I think I've said this on this panel before, that this is a really clear indication that a lot of our people, especially our people in the north, are living in a constant state of crisis, and it does not end. And what's concerning about this is the fact that there are youth and there are kids that are impacted by this. So that's where we need to stop pretending that our Indigenous youth, especially our Indigenous Northern youth, are getting the same type of living conditions or the same type of life that kids in urban centers would get, because they're not. They're disrupted from their homes, they're disrupted from their school life, their families are displaced. And this is now, a national emergency. And I just wish all levels of government would stop responding to emergencies in a way that they don't first prevent them. Better infrastructure, better crisis planning, all of these different things could help aid in these situations. But we're begging for them to address these crises, but the prevention really needs to be there. And we need, in my opinion, a national framework that comes into place and is actually utilized in instances exactly like this.
Nigan, this doesn't happen in other places. Why do you think this keeps happening in our communities?
Well, the pretty simple answer to that is that our communities aren't treated like human beings. And this would never be tolerated by people who are seen as valuable contributing members of society. Many of our First Nations are afterthoughts of governments, and the indications of that is oftentimes what you'll hear is situations on First Nations, chronic situations, like for instance, boil water situations, but in this case, just basic infrastructure that supports people in freezing temperatures to keep heat on in their houses. This is then put into the realm of reconciliation. This is not reconciliation. This is treating people like human beings. And so we need to see First Nations like how we see other people in this country. We oftentimes see that in cities, for example, you would never see long-term freezing temperatures where people are in homes having to face life and death situations. It would be fixed immediately, oftentimes within minutes. Oddly enough, Manitoba Hydro's response to the Pimicikamak situation was to fix that situation in 4 days, which, according to my research, is pretty much record time. That's pretty, on one level, good for you, Manitoba Hydro, for getting down to 4 days. But on another level, why the heck does it take 4 days to support people, which then resulted in hundreds and thousands of people being evacuated, tremendous stresses on all of us, and then most importantly, what happens afterwards for the years following?
And Jennifer, do you have any suggestions for the feds or Manitoba Hydro to get some viable solutions happening?
Well, I think if we just address the fact that no community should be living with one power line, that's a really good place to start, but also building, robust systems and backup systems that work. And instead of, again, focusing on emergency management and emergency response, we focus on, a national level of infrastructure management and planning so that this is no longer as big of an issue as it is. Because every time there's an emergency, whether it's wildfires or whatever it is, it really highlights the gap, and it also shows that there's a lack of communication, there's a breakdown in the crisis response, and a lot of the time our communities don't even know where to turn to. Do we go to the province? Do we go to the feds? It just seems like exactly what Egon said, our people are not viewed as valuable enough to even get into that realm of that planning, and I just wholeheartedly don't think that this should even be a thing in 2026.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to have to leave it there and continue the conversation over on the podcast, but thank you both.
We gotcha.
Thanks.
An author, advocate, lawyer, 60s scoop, and residential school survivor has been appointed to the Order of Canada. We'll tell you more after one final break. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. It was Christmas Eve and the setting sun over the territory of the Kashechewan Nation. Thanks to Clarence Jones, one of many regular contributors to our photo of the day segment. Beauty as always, Clarence. You too can be a regular contributor by sending your photos to share@aptn.ca. Send us a picture right now. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Over on the East Coast, 0 degrees and sunshine for Charlottetown, +1 in St. John's. Cartwright, -6 there. Happy Valley Goose Bay, -8. Montreal, rainy and 4 degrees. Saguenay, +3. Sarnia, 10 degrees there. Ottawa, rainy and 3. Timmins, snow and +1. Wawa, 0 degrees. God's Lake, sunny, -11. Puckatawagan, -9. Princess Harbor, -9 there. Winnipeg, -8. Regina, sunny and -6. Estevan, -5. Stony Rapids, -21. Buffalo Narrows, -14. -11 in Peace River, +1 in Grand Prairie. Calgary, -1 there. Medicine Hat, -3. Mix of sun and clouds, 6 degrees in Campbell River, 6 degrees in Vancouver. +2 for Prince George, 4 degrees in Smithers. Watson Lake, minus 19 there. Dawson, minus 29. Norman Wells, minus 31 there. Wrigley, minus 35. Tuktoyaktuk, minus 35 there. Colville Lake, minus 37. Baker Lake, minus 35. Nauyat, minus 21. Minus 19 for Iqaluit, and Clyde River, minus 18. Since 2008, the British Columbia Achievement Foundation has recognized over 200 Indigenous recipients in various categories of service. This year, the campaign is called Recognize Remarkable, and the categories are the Polygon First Nations Arts Award, the Sam Carter Award for Applied Art and Design, Indigenous Business Award, Community Award, and Reconciliation Award. Past recipients include fashion designer Hemiculus Pam Barker from the Squamish Nation and many others.
The campaign is about shining a light on individuals, businesses, organizations, artists who are doing remarkable work in communities across the province, and really taking time to highlight and focus on leaders, entrepreneurs, and change makers who are strengthening communities and shaping the future of the province. So all 5 programs are accepting nominations until February 15th. The nomination forms are available on our website at bcachievement.com. And then there's the 5 program pages. And then you can just make your way through the nomination forms. We've done our best to streamline and make it as easy as possible.
An author, advocate, lawyer, 60s Scoop, and residential school survivor from Red Pheasant Cree Nation in Saskatchewan has been appointed to the Order of Canada. It was announced New Year's Eve that Michelle Good is one of 80 to receive the honor this year. Good obtained her law degree in her 40s and spent more than 14 years advocating for residential school survivors. In 2014, she earned her Master of Fine Arts degree in creative writing. Her debut novel, 5 Little Indians, follows residential school survivors as they struggle to rebuild their lives after leaving the schools. It won several awards, including the Governor General's Award for English Language Fiction. Good says her journey from activism to law to writing is not a change in purpose, but a change in approach.
Of doing the best I can to improve circumstances for Indigenous peoples. And so, and of that, representing survivors was probably the most important, meaningful experience of my life. And it really was the springboard for making, finally, decisions about writing.
There will be an induction ceremony where Good will receive her Order of Canada to be hosted by the Governor General of Canada in Ottawa. The date has yet to be announced. Time now for our Nation to Nation host, Karen Pugliese, to preview her first episode of 2026.
Coming up on Nation to Nation, what are the biggest stories to watch in 2026? We're going to tell you. Here's a hint. GFN's Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak lands a seat at the First Minister's table. The courts may force the government's hand on water legislation, and questions are swirling around Métis governance. That's all coming up in mere minutes on your one and only Nation to Nation, so join us.
And that's all the time we have for your Thursday news. But for news anytime, visit our website at aptnnews.ca. I'm Savannah Kelly. Marcy Miigwech, thank you for joining us tonight. Stick around for Nation to Nation, coming right up after the news. Take care and have a great night.